The targeted grade for our 3-act task is kindergarten. The TEK states that for geometry and measurement, the student applies mathematical process standards to directly compare measurable attributes. The student is expected to give an example of a measurable attribute of a given object, including length, capacity, and weight, and compare two objects with the common measurable attribute to see which object has more of or less of the attribute and describe the difference.
There are a few different things teachers can do to ensure the success of the lesson. Specifically for measurements, here are some suggestions for teachers. Since measurements involve a lot of different units, starting with an anchor chart could be helpful for students to familiarize themselves with units. Also, comparison of different size items helps students comprehend bigger versus smaller and taller versus shorter. Measurements can also be done using manipulatives such as bricks to help students get a sense of counting while measuring. And last, giving students time to familiarize themselves with units of measurements is essential.
Okay, friends, remember, we have to be respectful to whoever is speaking. So if you have any questions or you just want to answer what the teacher is saying, you have to do like our friends on the screen and raise your hand and wait to be called.
In Act 1, we are going to introduce the concept of comparing two objects with a common measurable attribute to see which object has more of or less of the attribute and describe the difference. Okay, class, let's take a look at this stuffed bear. Are its arms and legs different sizes, or are they the same? Just by looking at the picture, we can tell that the legs might be a little bit longer than the arms. Here, we can see that we have added another stuffed animal to the slide. Let's compare them. What do you notice about the sizes of the animals? Is one bigger than the other, or are they the same size? Right, the stuffed bear is bigger than the stuffed bunny.
So now you might be asking yourself, how do we know for sure if the bear is bigger than the bunny? Well, in Act 2, we're going to find out a way to measure and see if bear is bigger than bunny. So, if we want to find out if one item is bigger or smaller than another, like our bunny and our bear, there are many tools we can use to figure this out. Today, we are going to find and compare the length of the animals by measuring them. And we will do this by using a ruler, like the one below. So what does a ruler do? It tells you how big or how small an object is in inches or centimeters.
Okay, moving on, we are now on Act 3, and we are going to get to measure the lengths of the animals and compare them. Okay, class, first we're going to measure this bear, and as you can see, he's lined up sort of next to the ruler, but in the next part, we are going to line him up and make sure that the measurements are accurate and we get as close as we can to how many inches he is. So now we have the bear lined up to the ruler, and we have it going from the very bottom to his feet to the very, very top of his ear. And this is not to scale. This might not be what your actual animals are if you measure your stuffed animals or something else. But just using the ruler on the slideshow, this gives you a good idea of how you should be measuring. Now we get to measure our rabbit stuffed animal. And we discussed this earlier, but think in your head really quick before you measure, what do you think will be longer in length? Do we think that the rabbit will be longer, or do you think that the bear we just did will be longer? So now we are measuring the rabbit with the ruler. And again, we're going from the very bottom of his feet all the way to the very top of his ears. And the rabbit and the bear are both sitting down in the pictures we're using. So we're using their length as it would be with them both sitting down. So it compares to one another. And looking at the rabbit from the very bottom to the top, the rabbit is about 4 inches long. So he would actually be smaller than the stuffed bear in length. Thank you guys so much for listening, participating as a class, doing this activity with us. And I hope that this gave you a better idea on what measurement is and how we can use it in the real world.